Good evening. I would like to call to order today's September 6, 2022 Little Rock City Board of Directors meeting. We'd like to welcome those in attendance as well as those watching at home or streaming online. Madam Clerk, if you would, please call the roll.
Director Miller.
Here.
Director Richardson.
Here.
Director Webb.
Here.
Director Peck.
Here.
Director Wright.
Here.
Director Weirich.
Present.
Director Compuris. Director Phillips. Director Adcock. Vice Mayor Hines.
Present.
Mayor Scott.
Present. We'll now have an invocation from Director Bj Weirich.
Thank you, Mayor. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day and for allowing us to meet in this public forum. We're here to discuss topics that will benefit the people in our community and our country. We want to think about how we can make life easier for everyone. Come and give us the wisdom to make the right decisions. Let us not make biased decisions, but decisions based on solving the problems. Be our leader during this meeting. Show us the way because you have chosen us to be here. Give us direction and let us not think with our own selfish interest. Open our eyes to solutions and help us make our city great. Help us stay attentive and follow everything we do and say. We thank you for our city employees, the work they do. They work hard for our citizens, protect our first responders as they are constantly being challenged in their daily work. Be with each of us as we travel home. These things we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. May we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes.
Today we have a presentation of the Hunger Action Month proclamation. Whereas the nations of the world, including the United States, have pledged themselves to uphold the United States 2030 Agenda for sustainable development and to end poverty and hunger entirely by 2030. Whereas nutrition-related conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, and high blood pressure significantly decrease Americans' lifespans and quality of life, leading to millions of deaths per year and millions sicker, more disabled, paralyzed, and cognitively impaired, and food insecurity and lack of access to healthy foods contribute to the development of various nutrition-related illnesses, and children facing hunger are more likely to experience developmental delay, need to repeat school years, and even experience more social and behavioral problems. And whereas 1 in 5 Arkansans experience food insecurity, which means they struggle to find sufficient access to nutritious food, and increased healthy food access and security in Little Rock enables residents of all ages, ethnicities, and cultures to lead happier, more productive, and more active lives, helps children to develop to their fullest potential, support thriving local economies, and promotes a cleaner environment. And whereas the city of Little Rock desires to build towards a future where no child need go hungry, and where all Americans have access to healthy, affordable, fresh, locally made, and sustainable produced food. And whereas through initiatives like Be Mighty Little Rock, the feeding programs when schools were closed due to COVID-19, community schools, targeted community development, and other programs, the City of Little Rock is proud to work with the Central Arkansas Library System, Little Rock School District, Arkansas Hunger Relief Alliance, and many other partners to expand access to healthy foods for residents of all ages, abilities, cultural, and economic backgrounds. And whereas September is recognized as Hunger Action Month in the United States, many in the United States and numerous cities. Now, therefore, I, Frank Scott Jr., Mayor of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, do hereby proclaim September 2022 Hunger Action Month. I want to take this time again to recognize our partners at the Central Arkansas Library System under Nate Coulter, Little Rock School District under Dr. Jamal Wright, Rock Region Metro, Pulaski County Special School District, Clinton Foundation, and World Central Kitchen, Arkansas Hunger Relief Alliance, Arkansas Food Bank, and countless others, but particularly here today, City Director Kathy Webb, and all of her tireless work that she's done as it relates to ending hunger, not only in this city, but our state. So let's give her and all of our advocates a round of applause. Any comments, Director Webb? Not to put you on the spot.
Only one, if I may take that moment. And you and I were at a press conference together with Nate Coulter and a few other people. And because this board 4 years ago voted for our city to participate in the National League of Cities project that they had, the board voted twice to support that. And Little Rock was chosen as one of 7 cities in the country to receive a grant at that time. And Nate reported at our press conference that Little Rock is the only one of those 7 cities or 6 cities that has sustained that program and even seen the program go. So it's a testament not only to the partners that you mentioned, but to community programs and to the people on this board for voting to continue to support the Be Mighty program. And I believe year to date, last year, I believe they had 45,000 meals to children in our city. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Board members, we have one modification for tonight's agenda. It's item 10, which is being deferred until September 20th at staff's request. Is there a motion?
So move.
There's a motion and a second. Second from Director Wright. I heard a motion from Director Richardson. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the consent agenda. And before we go to that, I believe before we go through the consent agenda, Director Miller, do you have a question on item number 7?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. And the city manager could probably answer this. I want to make sure on this resolution that this has nothing to do with facial recognition. We're not going down that path with this, are we?
That's correct, Director Miller. This came up probably 2 months ago from another department who was concerned that that was a possibility, and I did confirm with the police department that it is not a possibility, or that will not be a part of this at all.
Thank you.
So everyone, there would be no, as Manager Moore just shared, no facial recognition. I know there's some agenda items. I wanted to share that since it is on consent. Director Weirich, I can see your hand.
Yes, Mayor, do you have a card on item 16?
No, ma'am.
You don't have a card on 16?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I was asked the question as to what we're doing with item 16. Can you give can someone do a presentation on 16 before we proceed with the consent agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, we brought this first to you back in, I believe it was May, asking for permission to purchase the Delta Dental building at the Port of Little Rock. It's a 40,000 square foot building on about 4 acres of land. The hope is that what we would want to do with that building is create a resource center where we can have training space, maybe healthcare, food service, temporary office space for new prospects, possible entities like Customs or TSA that need office space in this building. What we're doing tonight is just clarifying. When we came in May, the Delta Dental was going to allow us to pay this off over 5 years using port revenues, and this just clarifies that mortgage.
And it does come from port revenues to purchase?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It'll be port
I
revenues.
think that was the big question.
Okay, yes, ma'am. No city funds on
No
this one.
city funds. Okay.
And just to clarify that with the passage of the millage, which we're very grateful for, none of those funds that were set aside for land acquisition will be used for this purchase.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Day.
Not so quick, Mayor. I don't know if you saw my hand up.
Director Richardson.
Yes, Brian, just a couple of quick questions on that. Thank you for answering BJ's question. With the need for employment growing at the Riverport and Airport. Will we do any kind of job training out there, any kind of job preparation training like welding or any other kind of employment opportunities that we know that we have that are much needed out there in the area? So would that be a part of the services in that building, job training, career development, those sources of opportunities?
Yes, sir. Once we acquire the building, we will begin working with community partners to plan those services. I'm not sure it would be conducive for like a welding class, but we know that some basic soft skills, computer skills, mechanical skills. We're having conversations with Pulaski Tech. We're having conversations with Career Workforce Services. We're having conversations with other entities that are, like, for example, HMS, which is a company of the port. They're doing some of their own training for plastic extrusion. Lexicon's doing some training for welding. And so those services that might be applicable to this building, we do envision setting aside probably a 15,000 square foot training space for job fairs, basic training, career development, workforce ready programs, and all of that will be a part of this building. As we don't know what that looks like yet, Director Richardson, but as we begin moving forward with our working group, we're having those conversations with entities that do that service. It's not something we can provide, but we can provide the space for those entities to provide those programs.
So beyond that, then, the resources we're talking about, we're not talking about any of your resources. We're looking at particularly grants funded programs that are available to us in our city in targeted areas in our city.
Yes, sir, or leasing space to an entity that could provide those programs and services.
Thank you, Brian.
Yes, sir. Thank you all for your consideration.
Thank you so much. Seeing no others, Madam Clerk, if you'll read the consent agenda.
The consent agenda consists of a resolution to express the willingness of the City of Little Rock, Arkansas to partner with the Arkansas Department of Transportation for the transfer of the Cumberland Street right-of-way south of President Clinton Avenue, and for the purposes, a resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Johnson, Merriman, and Thompson Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $67,312.93 to resurvey the Hillcrest National Register Historic District, and for other purposes, a resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Bill's Fence Company in an amount not to exceed $59,827 for perimeter fence replacement services at the Little Rock Zoo, and for the purposes, a resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with the Arkansas Regional Commission in an amount not to exceed $117,125 for housing opportunities for persons with AIDS, grant funding for 1 year, and for the purposes, a resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Pulaski County Community Services in an amount not to exceed $422,114.99 for housing opportunities for persons with AIDS, grant funding for 1 year, and for the purposes, a resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with the Little Rock School District in the amount of $150,000 to implement the Blue and You Foundation grant awarded to the City of Little Rock to serve the students at the Little Rock Community Schools and their families, and for other purposes, a resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Motorola Solutions in a total amount of $52,470 plus applicable taxes and fees for the purchase of redactive video and audio redaction software for the Little Rock Police Department, and for the purposes, a resolution to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Fusus LLC in an amount not to exceed $128,937 plus applicable taxes and fees to purchase a software management system for the Little Rock Police Department Real-Time Crime Center, and for the purposes, a resolution to authorize the city manager to execute a contract with ABM Supply in an amount not to exceed $61,950 plus applicable taxes and fees for the purchase of binocular night vision devices for the Little Rock Bomb Squad and the Little Rock SWAT Team, and for the purposes, a resolution to transfer the title of the property located at 1218 West 23rd Street from the City of Little Rock, Arkansas to Vickery Construction LLC to be used for neighborhood revitalization programs, and for the purposes, a resolution to repeal resolution number 15,189 of March the 17th, 2020, amending certain parts of the City of Little Rock's parks and master Parks and Recreation Master Plan of July the 17th, 2001, and for the purposes, a resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Wittenberg, Deloney, and Davidson Architects Incorporated in amount not to exceed $82,637.50 to provide architectural and engineering design services for the expansion and renovation of the Little Rock Animal Village facility and for the purposes, funding from the 3/8 capital improvement sales tax. A resolution authorized the mayor to enter into a contract with the Thomas Residential and Farm Trust in the amount of $112,000 for the purchase of approximately 3 acres of land in a residential structure located at 12,600 Fraser Pike Road for use by the Little Rock Port Authority for economic prospect recruitment and for the purposes. A resolution authorized the mayor to enter into a contract with Samuel Lanier Rains, Twyla Ann Rains, and Barbara Duty in the amount of $90,000 for the purchase of approximately 40 acres of land adjacent to the Port of Little Rock for use by the Little Rock Port Authority for economic prospect recruitment and for the purposes. A resolution to amend Resolution Number 15,678 of March the 3rd, 2022, in order to authorize the Little Rock Port Authority to enter into a contract with Delta Dental Plan of Arkansas Incorporated in the amount of $2,200,000 for the purchase of approximately 5 acres of land in a 40,000 square foot building for use by the Little Rock Port Authority for economic prospect recruitment and for the purposes. A resolution to amend Resolution Number 15,238 of June 16, 2020, to increase the annual contract with Southern Tire Mart LLC to include an additional $141,600 to cover the expenses for the final renewal term and for the purposes. A resolution to set September 20th, 2022 as the date of public hearing to form and lay off the Little Rock Municipal Property Owners Improvement District, number 2022-003, Crystal Valley Subdivision, and for the purposes. A resolution to set September 20, 2022 as the date of public hearing to form and lay off the Little Rock Municipal Property Owners Improvement District, number 2022-004, the Woodlands Park Recreation District, and for the purposes. A resolution to set September 2022 as the date of public hearing to form and lay off Little Rock Municipal Property Owners Improvement District number 2022-005, Woodland Park Subdivision, and for the purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Aflac for the voluntary group accident insurance for a 12-month period effective January 1st, 2023, and for the purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Delta Dental Insurance in an amount not to exceed $1,500,000 to provide administrative services for a period beginning January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023, and for the purposes. A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into contract with Lincoln Financial in an amount not to exceed $750,000 for group life, group AD&D, and long-term disability insurance for a 12-month period effective January 1st, 2023 to include a clause which permits the city to renew the contract at its option for 5 additional years, and for the purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Lincoln Financial for voluntary group life, group AD&D, and group critical illness insurance for a 12-month period effective January 1st, 2023, and for the purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Transamerica for voluntary cancer insurance for a 12-month period effective January 1st, 2023, and for the purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Transamerica for voluntary group universal life insurance for a 12-month period effective January 1st, 2023, and for the purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with VSP in an amount not to exceed $160,000 to provide administrative services for the self-funded vision plan for a period beginning January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023, and for other purposes. That concludes the consent agenda.
Move for the adoption of the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the grouped items.
We have citizen
This
communication.
communication, Mayor.
Citizens Communications, I'm sorry. Mr. Jimmy Cavan.
Good evening. At the meeting on August 9th, Mayor, you announced changes to the FOI process, putting it under the city attorney's office with Alex Benton at the helm and Tom Carpenter having final say. But nothing has changed. And that's not Alex or Tom's fault, that's your fault. Tom was told he and Alex would have total control, with Tom having final say, but just like in the past, you want your chief of staff, Kendra Pruitt, to have control, and you're still violating the laws of the Arkansas Freedom of Information Act brazenly. Vice Mayor Hines told you at the meeting that his sources tell him Ms. Pruitt has final say, and he was 100% correct. My sources have told me, and are telling me, the same thing, that now you want to change Tom's plan and put Kendra in the position of final say. Now, how do I know who, do you know who backs what I and Lance are saying? Kendra does. You only need to watch the video I obtained of her and Aaron Sadler after that meeting ambushing and trying to bully and intimidate reporter Mitch McCoy. Happened right out here in the hallway. With her own words, she described just how involved she is in the process, even making a false legal argument to Mitch about why he didn't receive information. Phone call logs in particular, that are clearly disclosable. The city, in fact, has disclosed this information many times in the past, and Tom has opined that they are absolutely disclosable, and getting them from the company is not creating a record, period. But apparently, because it's your staff and your staff's phone logs being requested, the law does not apply. So please, Mayor, do not state that Kendra has nothing to do with it, what gets approved for disclosure, because the point, you might as well say the world is flat. Now, on Sunday, I filed a new incident report with LRTD for you violating the law in regards to another request I submitted on August 8th. I've made all of you aware of this, and I will be seeking separate prosecution under the law for it, and it's cut and dried. Frank, it's bad enough that you spend tax dollars, money on yourself and others as if you are a king and they're your subjects. It's bad enough you spend hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars to have LRPD guard you as if you were a king. Now you're thumbing your nose at not only the law, but the prosecuting attorney as well. The prosecuting attorney has no king, neither do the people. My question to board members is, when will each of you do your duty to the people and speak up against it and do something about it? Thank you.
Mr. Scrable?
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to exercise my First Amendment rights, now 103rd time. Tonight I'm speaking on the mayor's ACT plan, which is supposed to stand for accountability, clear, and transparency. When we get to real life, there is no accountability that can be recorded the last 3 years and 8 months. I recently have tried to get records from December the 15th and 29th of 2020 when the vice mayor tried to bring a resolution to have the chief of police removed. And when I tried to get the list of people talking against the resolution, the mayor sent me back a rubber stamp saying he had no records to meet my request, but this was a bald-faced lie. The mayor is not elected and hired to, number one, lie to the public. Number two, he's not elected and hired to break the law. And I had the city attorney give the mayor an opportunity generously to settle this matter out of court or to go to court. And an honest man would have settled this matter out of court, because then he could have stood up in front of the city and shown that he provided accountability under his ACT plan. But all he does is talk about accountability and being clear and transparent. But if he was transparent, Russ Raycup wouldn't have filed 5 lawsuits against the mayor for not providing city records through the FOI Act. Same problem now with Mr. Cavan, wouldn't be in Mr. Jegley's office filing a 25-19-104 Arkansas Code violation against the mayor if he was providing accountability. You can talk a good game, but when you get out in public and you don't provide that accountability after you've printed it on your website that you have an ACT plan, you're just basically lying to the public. And the voters now are coming to the polls in 9 weeks. And we don't want to vote in another mayor that's going to lie to us.
Mr. Scraper, your time is up.
Oh, okay.
Thank you so much. Mr. Malik Marshall. We'll come back to Mr. Malik.
Hey, y'all. Hi, my name is Malik Marshall. I'm here on behalf of Arkansas Community Organizations. A few weeks ago, we had 8 speakers and over 50 supporters from the South End community come to speak about the ARP.
Mr. Marshall, if you'll hold 1 second, we'll hold the time. Can you speak up a little bit? I don't think some board members can hear.
Oh, that's what that means. That makes sense. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, got it. My name is Malik. I'm here on behalf of Arkansas Community Organizations. A few weeks ago, we had 8 speakers and over 50 supporters from the South End community come speak about how this ARP money would be an invaluable resource for our low-income and Black and brown communities. We're back today, we're a lot smaller. You know, we're not going to take up all your meeting time this time. But I just want to say that we support item 35 and the mayor's plan to spend ARP money on our important priorities like food deserts, parks and infrastructure, and community programs. We have not always agreed with the mayor. He'll tell you more than anyone that we're hard on him, and we're not afraid to tell him how we feel. But this plan to distribute ARPA funds to support our community shows that what we've been pushing for over the past year has not been pushed for in vain. It is often said that many on this board are not in touch with the communities they are meant to represent. Those aren't my words. Those are your words. I'm not, actually y'all said that in a previous meeting this year, so I'm not saying I don't agree, but I didn't say it, y'all said it. So I'm just saying, and I would just say, take it from, we have members all across the city in all different wards. We are very much on the ground. We're in these communities, and we feel like this plan makes our priorities the city's priorities, something that historically the city has not seen very often. The influx of money like this into the city's coffers is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Well, I guess it's twice because this is the second round, but it's not going to happen again, basically. And you can bet that no matter which plan passes, we will be diligent and thorough in pressuring the mayor and you all to make sure that money reaches our communities. So we really hope that we can take this opportunity to invest in our underserved communities, and I appreciate you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Marshall. Ms. Kathy Wells. Ms. Kathy, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Thank you. If staff could distribute my letter. I'm Kathy Wells, president of the Coalition of Little Rock Neighborhoods. I'm bringing here tonight a concern that our members have had for several months now. And our discussions with the police have been very cordial, but we've not quite gotten there yet. What we're here tonight to request from this board is that you establish the policy that the City of Little Rock limits any facial recognition software usage to white images only and prohibits application of recognition software to non-white images upon pain of termination. Our leaders should protect the public from false identification and set policies with public input to govern these face collections, their storage, notice when used, how long kept, and so forth. The city should also enable public members to delete their own images as desired. Professional analysis has determined that technology fails to identify non-white images. Mistaken identity has led to false arrest and jailing of innocent citizens. Members of the coalition have discussed this issue with the police. Regrettably, there was no response to our proposal of July 22nd, proposing this ban on not-white images. So we're bringing it to you here tonight to continue the discussion. We're relying on the National Institute of Standards and Technology report. They tested 189 facial recognition algorithms from 99 developers using a field of more than 18 million photos. This board considers reactive video in item 7 tonight. That's collecting faces. I appreciate that it's not in itself going to facial recognition. However, in a July 14th email, the police spokesman said the department didn't have it and didn't intend to buy it. They also conceded that where an issue arises, they've relayed photographs to the Federal Homeland Security Fusion Center, their partners in law enforcement, which does this for them. So it's happening. The Institute analysis lists greatest errors come from viewing Native Americans and African American females. African American and Asian faces were falsely identified 10 to 100 times more than Caucasian faces. The technology has more difficulty identifying women than men, and falsely identified older adults up to 10 times more than middle-aged adults. So frankly, that puts a potential target on all your backs. Please, be careful. Begin an analysis, begin the research. We will send you emails with our background to show you from whence we come. But we need to enact protections before any facial recognition is used in this city, and that includes the little trickle going forward now.
Ms.
Thank
Wells,
you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Frederick Johnson. Mr. Frederick Johnson. Mr. Frederick Johnson. We'll proceed. Autumn Rains.
I also have a letter I'd like to. Good evening. Thank you for your time this evening. I'm also here on behalf of the Coalition of Little Rock Neighborhoods. It's come to my attention that the Little Rock Board of Directors intends to approve funds for the purchase of software for use by the Little Rock Police Department that will be used to conduct the classification of faces and other visual factors from image and video data files obtained in the line of duty, otherwise known as item 7 tonight on the agenda. The use of this software was not previously discussed with the public to my knowledge. We formally request the vote for this purchase be postponed, allowing for further investigation as to the use of this software and how the image and video data files will be used, analyzed, shared, and stored. My colleague Kathy definitely shared some of the harms that can be introduced when this is done incorrectly. Further, I would highly recommend the Little Rock Police Department create and disclose a public policy detailing data collection, use, and storage when the source of the data is the general public. This policy should outline the types of data collected, its use, how long it will be kept, and if the data will be shared with any other party. Additionally, residents should be notified of the existence of this data and when it is used, with the option to review and remove portions or all data collected in an orderly manner. These recommendations are in line with industry best practices concerning data privacy and consent laws in privacy and security domains. We've seen a lot of investment in recent technology applications. I think they have great potential for helping our community, but we need to make sure that we're having a unified conversation about how these are used and how they'll be used they'll be used moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Autumn. James Land and Marshall Poole. You all are sharing the time together.
Good evening, Mayor. We are here and representing the John Bear community, and we also with Arkansas Community Organization. We have been requesting to have a meeting with you and the residents of John Bear area and about the Kiwanis Park. We'd like for you to reopen the Kiwanis Park. Only thing that we got from you was that there was environmental issues. We'd like you to explain those issues more clearly. And what we're asking for to be done at that park, we're asking for a new parking lot on the north side of Hope Street. And since we didn't get a swimming pool, we'd like for a water pad in our community for our kids. That park needs lighting on the Hope side. The park also, the city took the playground equipment from the park. We'd like for the equipment to be returned, or some new equipment. We need our basketball goals fixed. We only have 2 out there that are good, and the other 2 are bad. The water fountain, you need a new water fountain. We have no restrooms, no picnic tables, no grills. The grass hardly ever get cut. The walking track need to be resurfaced. We need more trash bins out there. And, and the community is also asking, they like to put a community garden on the north side by Hope Street. And we'd like for the pond to be restocked. There's a fishing pond there. And what else? Anything else?
Thank you so much, Mr. Land. What I would ask, I'm going to give you a phone number, 371-4744. I'm not aware of you all wanting to get in touch, but I definitely took down notes today on all these things, and we'll be scheduling a meeting soon. Thank you for coming tonight.
Okay.
And we'll get to work on, see what we can get done.
Mayor,
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Land.
Mayor Scott,
Director Wright.
I just wanted you to know that I'm aware of these issues, and I've been working with Leland Couch, and he's working on a plan for Kiwanis to get it back open and to get.
Do you mind sharing, or is
Sure.
Leland here?
I don't know if he's here. I haven't
Leland, if you're here,
seen him.
is Leland here?
But I know, especially with the money that we are allocating for our parks, he has been working on the plan. He knows of the issues.
The millage.
And the playground, of course, that equipment was just so old, and he told me why he removed it. But I wasn't aware of the community garden part, but I am aware of all the other issues.
Mr. Leland, if you'll just give a brief update, but also if you will give your contact information to Mr. Land and to Ms. Poole to schedule a meeting, and if you'll work with my executive assistant to get a meeting with you, myself, and Director Wright and Mr. Land and Mr. Poole.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Board members. I have been working on Kiwanis. We did remove the playground recently and are planning on replacing it with some of the new funding that we have. Director Wright and I have been discussing improvements there as well. We didn't have the list maybe for the splash pad and some of the other improvements, but we do have a collective list that we're working on. So I will share my information. My direct office is 501-371-4770.
Just make sure, just write it down and they're right behind you.
Oh, okay. I'll give them to him. And we'll work with you, Mayor, on that as well.
Thank you. And we'll make sure Director Wright's included.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And thank you so much again, Mr. Land and Ms. Poole. We do appreciate you. I believe that is it on the citizens communication.
Mayor, I would also encourage the community to attend the Ward 6 public meeting regarding the millage, where we'll be talking about public works and parks and
Get that date and time and location, Mr. Moore?
September 19th.
September 19th at 6 o'clock.
West Central Community Center. I don't know if they heard it, Mayor.
We'll make sure that, Ashley, if you'll make sure we get that to them. All right. We'll keep it moving. Madam Clerk, if you read group items.
An ordinance to accept the Tebow-Zuber annexation to add certain lands to the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and to zone said land to I-3 Heavy Industrial District and for the purposes, an ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid, to authorize the city manager to execute a sole source agreement with Rural Services for the Blind Incorporated in amount not to exceed $100,000 to promote long-term housing security for persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities as well as blindness, and for the purposes, an ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid, to authorize the city manager to enter into a sole source contract with Tyler Technologies Incorporated in amount not to exceed $97,812 plus applicable taxes and fees for the annual software subscription and maintenance renewal, and for the purposes, an ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid, to authorize the city manager to issue a sole source purchase order to Forge Institute in amount not to exceed $139,500 for the purchase of one cybersecurity strike team training course for use by the Information Technology Department, and for other purposes. An ordinance to provide for the issuance and sale of the series of library construction and refunding bonds for the purpose of funding acquisition, construction, and equipping of library capital improvement projects, refunding an outstanding series of library construction refunding bonds, pledging library tax revenues and special tax collections sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on the bonds, authorizing the execution and delivery of a trust indenture and other documents authorizing the accomplishment of the projects, approving an official statement, prescribing other matters relating thereto, declare an emergency, and for the purposes, first reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place on second reading.
Second.
There's a motion second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it, second reading.
An ordinance to accept the Tebow-Zuber annexation to add certain lands to the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and to zone said land to I-3 Heavy Industrial District. An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid, to authorize the city manager to execute a sole source agreement with Rural Services for the Blind Incorporated in amount not to exceed $100,000 to promote long-term housing security for persons with intellectual and development disabilities as well as blindness. An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid, to authorize the city manager to enter into a sole source contract with Tyler Technologies Incorporated in amount not to exceed $97,812 plus applicable taxes and fees for the annual software subscription and maintenance renewal, and for the purposes, an ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid, to authorize the city manager to issue a sole source purchase order to Forge Institute in amount not to exceed $139,500 for the purchase of one cybersecurity strike team training course for use by the Information Technology Department. An ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of a series of library construction and refunding bonds for the purpose of funding acquisition, construction, and equipping of library capital improvement projects, refunding an outstanding series of library construction and refunding bonds, pledging library tax revenues and special tax collections sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on the bonds, authorizing the execution and delivery of a trust indenture and other documents authorizing the accomplishments of the project, approving an official statement, prescribing other matters relating thereto, to declare an emergency, second reading.
Move to suspend the rules and place on third reading.
Second. Oh, there's a motion second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it, third reading.
An ordinance to accept the Tebow-Zuber annexation to add certain lands to the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and to zone said land to I-3 Heavy Industrial District. An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid, to authorize the city manager to execute a sole source agreement with Rural Services for the Blind Incorporated in amount not to exceed $100,000 to promote long-term housing security for persons with intellectual and development disabilities as well as blindness. An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid, to authorize the city manager to enter into a sole source contract with Tyler Technologies Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $97,812 plus applicable taxes and fees for the annual software subscription and maintenance renewal. An ordinance to declare it impractical and unfeasible to bid, to authorize the city manager to issue a sole source purchase order to Forge Institute in an amount not to exceed $139,500 for the purchase of one cybersecurity strike team training course for use by the Information Technology Department. An ordinance to provide for the issuance and sale of a series of library construction and refunding bonds for the purpose of funding acquisition, construction, and equipping of library capital improvement projects, refunding an outstanding series of library construction and refunding bonds, pledging library tax revenues and special tax collections sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on the bonds, authorizing the execution and delivery of a trust indenture and other documents authorizing the accomplishment of the projects, approving an official statement, prescribing other matters relating thereto, to declare an emergency, third and final reading.
We've now had three readings. Any questions from members of the board? Questions from members of the board? Questions from members of the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk,
We have an emergency clause.
we also have emergency clause. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read resolution number 33.
A resolution authorizes the city manager to enter into a contract with Cigna Insurance for the city's 2023 group health plan and for other purposes.
We'll now have a presentation, Stacy Witherwell as well as JTS. We'll get Stacy Witherwell, please, and JTS. I think they're in the back.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Scott, Board of Directors. We're very happy to be here this evening to share this information with you. We did come before the board earlier this year so that you had ample time to look at the fringes and the health insurance package as well, and to also, pending your approval, get that information to the budget office for the budget as well. As we discuss every year, this is our largest employee expenditures next to salaries. So it's very important, just as the basis to get the budget started. So thank you. Down arrow. The presentation was included in your packet, but we have it here before you as well. And I can do this, or I can invite John Starling up to
Let's
go
have
through
John.
the PowerPoint. And I will ask John Starling to come up to the podium then. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy. Good afternoon, good evening. My name is John Starling with JTS. Y'all elected us to represent you on your benefits. Last year, we have been with United Healthcare since 2016. Vice Mayor Hines, I do believe one of the things that you'd ask is if we could try to expedite this process so that we could get these renewals out so that we wouldn't be under the gun. And I will take my hat off to United Healthcare. They worked very diligent to get us the information for the renewal, the claims versus premium, and everything so that we got this out in a very early fashion. They came back with a nice rate decrease for us on an early renewal, which this has kind of been heard of when you look at 6 months in advance, which means we have 6 months of claims to run out that could dramatically change in that time period, but they still gave us a very nice offer. That being said, the decision was made to take it out to bid, and that's what we did, and we took it to all the carriers in an RFP. And all that with Cigna, QualChoice, United Healthcare, and Blue Cross are the primary players in this market. The bid was submitted to them with a last and final bid request. And at this point, Cigna has been selected as the carrier of choice. Obviously, in the process, we look at network to make sure that we're not going to have disruption with doctors, hospitals, facilities. Change from one carrier to another is always going to be a lot of extra work because we have different formularies. There are different networks, but when we addressed all of that, the network disruption was negligible. So then it came down to price. And I'm happy to announce that Cigna has come in with as close as they could, apples to apples benefit plans to what we currently offer. So there's always a few changes, but ultimately it's as close as we could get. And they gave us a 12.2% premium decrease. So to put that in perspective, our premium runs in the neighborhood of $17 million. So you can do the math. This is a very big number. They also gave us a $300,000 January premium credit. So effective January 1, we get a credit on the premium. Thank you. And that's in addition to the 12.2%. We also have a $100,000 health improvement fund, wellness fund. So that money is going to go to help us create and manage a wellness program for the employees of the city. And then we're also going to have a dedicated billing representative that's going to help us and help the city manage our bills and expedite that process. So the total estimated cost savings, roughly 14%. So that being said, that's a big win for the city. It's staying fully insured. This is not self-funded. This is not partially self-funded. It is a fully insured plan. So whatever our premiums are, that's what our exposure is. So, they did remove some other benefits that we did as we removed the age restriction on certain cancer screenings, like colonoscopies. Also, we've got mental health is now covered as a co-payment. As y'all know, with COVID and everything else, mental health is very much first and forefront in issues and help and assistance that our employees need. We also moved to a 4-tier dependent coverage option. So instead of having 2 tiers, we have 4 tiers. And then we have a $150,000 pledge for our minority business in the area for cities and events and programs. We have an on-site engagement consultant for wellness, so we have somebody to help our employees with the wellness. We have Cigna has a mobile app that you can use to look at your deductibles, your copays, your out-of-pocket costs, different providers who are lower cost providers. And then with the mental health, we have virtual counseling. So our employees can actually get virtual counseling rather than have to go to a facility to receive that counseling. So one of the benefits of this decrease is that we're going to eliminate $34.28 per month, which is roughly $411 a year as a charge to the employees on the base plan. So what that will do is that will reduce the base plan to the employees to a 0 cost. That's a big win. So the other thing is with the implement the new tiers, what we're going to do is we're actually going to go through the different tiers and we're going to adjust the premium as a percentage rather than a fixed amount to try to get it to where we can make this as beneficial to as many people as possible. And then with the money that we're getting for the wellness program, we're also going to be able to implement a wellness discount, so a $50 credit for the employees that actually complete a wellness exam in 2023. This is getting us in the right direction to where we're actually starting to look at our employees' health and we're rewarding them if they will participate. So the open enrollment itself is going to be scheduled for November of 2022. The other benefits that we've provided in the past, obviously Delta Dental. Delta Dental is on a self-funded basis. Stacy asked us to, and we took it out and looked at what does it look like if we were fully insured versus self-funded. And y'all have made the right decision. There was dramatic savings by being self-funded on the dental rather than being fully insured. So we're staying with Delta Dental. There is a 25-cent per member rate increase just for the administrative services. But as far as the vision, it's with VSP, it's staying the same. With all the products, the voluntary life, critical illness, disability with Lincoln, it's staying the same. We've got voluntary accident with Aflac. And we're offering a new policy, a cancer policy that's been requested from Transamerica. And then the last one is we have a universal life policy with Transamerica that also has long-term care tied with it. Those are the changes that we've seen. It's nice to come up and actually tell a group that you have 14% decrease because I'll be honest with you, we don't get that very much anymore. But I think that the city, the mayor, Human Resources Department is doing the best they can to allocate that money to help our employees as best possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Starling. Thank you, JTS, Stacy, Jenny, the entire Human Resource Department, the time and effort that you guys have put towards this. I know there's been a lot of navigation on whether or not to chart forward with self-insured versus fully insured want to say, share with Director Compuris has been a part of that navigation as well. We do believe that, remaining fully insured is the appropriate way. Definitely having this 14% decrease. We're very grateful that Cigna was able to do this decrease, but not only have this decrease, but really match as many of our current benefits right now. So there's virtually no real change to our workforce. And really excited to see the commitment that Cigna has made to minority women business-owned companies within this process as well. And I think probably most importantly right now is that I know we came in, had to make some costly decisions as a city board early on in regards to our employees taking on that 3428, and I think that's a big win for our employees, that's no longer a cost to them. And so thank you for that hard work. Thank you, Director Compuris, in regards to helping us navigate through whether or not we move towards the self-insured versus fully insured. And I'll now give it to you, Director Compuris.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a big win, and you and John and Stacy and the whole department deserve a lot of credit. We have talked about self-insured for a number of years, and this would be the 100% wrong time to do it. You have to understand that for the last 2 or 3 years, all the insurance companies have been making lots of money, and there's a limit on how much they can keep. So we're in a perfect position for them to say, we want to have business. I was going to use another verb, but I won't use that one. We want to have business, and we will take some of that reserve that we have and lower your premium in order to do this. COVID this last year with United, they're getting, I think it's 87% of what.
Yes, sir.
So they're getting a 13% profit on everything they do, plus their administration fees. So you take Cigna or you take any of the insurance companies, they're making a lot of money. All of them are. So this is the perfect year, and John and the mayor decided, and that I agreed with them, that we should put it out to bid to see how low we could get. If you'd asked me when we had the United bid, if we were going to get to 14%, I would have bet anything that we wouldn't get anywhere near that close. So it was a risk worth taking. We're going to have a great year to save some money. Now, a year from now, I'm not sure what's going to happen, because I'm afraid what will happen then is that someone's going to come back and say we need to start getting some of that money back. But that's next year's problem. But for this year, we're taking advantage of the situation. We've had a smart consultant that has helped us navigate this, and the mayor has been very good about saying we need to take the risk to see what the waters would bring. And 14% is 14%. We've got some money to spend on something else. So everybody on Stacy's team and John's team and the mayor deserve great accolades for this.
Thank you so much, Director Compuris, but teamwork, and appreciate your counsel and guidance through this navigation process. And again, thank you, Cigna, for your hard work. Director Adcock.
Yes. Stacy, the one question that all employees seem to always have is, can we keep the same doctors? Can we keep the same hospitals?
If I may. All the major hospitals are included in network, and also we did an analysis of the physicians. Now, there will be some changes, but for the most part, a majority of the physicians are in both networks. And if that one employee doesn't have a in-network doctor, they can always apply to have their doctor included in the network as well.
Okay, my other question is about the retired people.
Yes.
This last week, we spent time with the Fire Old Pension Board and the Police Old Pension Board.
Mm-hmm.
So with the people who are out of state or out of the city, do they get to keep theirs?
Yes, they have a nationwide network of physicians, so they should still have the same access to the care that they enjoy now.
Okay, thank you.
And Mayor, I did want you to know that we did have Cigna representatives in the audience if you wanted to recognize them as well before or after the vote.
Well, let's vote first. I think I recognized them a couple times already. All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have.
I didn't have a motion in a second.
So move to
Motion second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. Cigna, thank you so much. We really do appreciate you all. Thank you, JTS.
Mary Lee and Eric, thank you all very much. We appreciate you.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Jenny. And please share appreciation to the HR team. All right. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read item number 34.
A resolution to state the primary intended uses of a portion of the second tranche to the City of Little Rock, Arkansas, allotment of the local fiscal recovery funds through the American Rescue Plan Act and for other purposes.
Move to suspend the rules in place on second reading.
It's a resolution.
Okay.
Director Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to offer an amendment to the resolution, if I may.
I hear a motion to offer amendment. What would be the amendment?
I would like to amend the resolution to add $1 million for the food desert item that we have discussed, and I would like a commitment that we allocate this money in target areas, including Ward 6, because we do have one possible store on the horizon. So I'd like to, I don't know if we have to put that specific allocation in there, but I'd like a commitment from the board that we allocate this in our target areas, including Ward 6.
We've heard an amendment to add $1 million to address food deserts, particularly for targeted community development, as well as in Ward 6. We understand that to be the amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to add Director Webb's amendment. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay. Nay.
Ayes have it. On the amendment, I see Director Phillips.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And my nay was not because I don't agree with Director Webb's amendment. I do. I just would add an amendment to her amendment. I support Director Wright's proposal and Director Webb's amendment. I think in the spirit of being intentional, especially in light of what the community organizations representative told us today about certain neighborhoods in our city, and using these funds and to address some issues that hadn't been addressed for decades, I would support or offer an additional amendment, Mayor, which is the $1 million for economic development for the targeted community development resolution that the board passed, I guess, last year to allow for us to do infrastructure development in wards 1, 2, 6, and 7. I will allocate $1 million to that to go along with Director Webb's $1 million allocation as it relates to food deserts, also in targeted community areas. And in doing so, my understanding of the math, Mayor, is that we would still have approximately $4.5 million left from the second tranche to allocate at some other time. So I think that does resolve some of the concerns that people have had about having a cushion as it relates to things that may happen in the future. But this also shows our residents, especially in those areas, that we are committed to fulfilling our promise to them of spending dollars in targeted community areas. So I would like to amend Director Webb's amendment with an additional $1 million for infrastructure as economic development in wards 1, 2, 6, and 7.
So, Director, I got it. I understand. Director Phillips, Director Webb's amendment already passed. You are offering a new amendment, so that's a motion. Is there a second to add?
That was a motion.
Yeah, so that's a motion. Is there a second to add an additional million for economic development and target community development areas?
I'd second that.
There's a motion and a second for Director Phillips' amendment. So this is additional million, which will leave 4.5 million left over. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Ayes have it.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Madam Clerk?
Director Campuris,
No.
Director Phillips,
Yes.
Director Adcock,
No.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Richardson,
Yes.
Director Webb,
No.
Director Peck,
No.
Director Wright,
No.
Director Weirich, Vice Mayor Hines.
No.
3 ayes, 7 nays.
All right. Motion fails to add $1 million for economic development and targeted community development areas. The Vice Mayor Hines.
I have one other, hopefully friendly amendment. I would ask that we come back in 90 days to take a look at the unallocated funds to make sure that we're trying to see what we can address for the end of the year. But I think we need to hold it in reserve. But I want to make a commitment to all of those folks in the city that we will come back and look at this in 90 days.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay with confusion. Are we,
We're still on the amendments.
the amendment is to come back in 90 days and look at what's going to be left over? Is that operating under the assumption that the next resolutions are not going to pass? What are we talking about? Because we're spinning in circles here, I think, amending the amendments and offering. So could you please clarify that for me, please?
I'll clarify for you. So right now, there's been 1 million added to item 34, which will reduce, I believe, 6.5 million now to 5.5 million left over. Because 1 million's been added to, 1 million's been taken from, not necessarily taken from item 35, but 1 million for food deserts, which is in item 35, has been transitioned to item number 34, which now decreases item number 34's unallocated amount from 6.5 million to 5.5 million.
I guess my point is, if we pass item number 35, there's been a moot point then, correct? I mean, if we pass
It would be
number 35, it's going, everything is added right back in there. So we're talking about the cake with the icing, which is what's confusing to me, because resolution number 35 essentially is putting in and it's addressing all those areas that we say we want to hold some money to the side for 90 days, 120 days, or 6 months, however long we declare it will be the necessary time. To me, it's kind of, it's confusing, really, really confusing, particularly when these issues we're trying to address are not waiting in 90 days or 120 days or 6 months. So if we pass that and come back and pass Resolution 35, that's going to make his amendment moot, correct?
Well, it would, but also what would happen essentially, 35 will still be up for a vote. More than likely what'll happen is I will amend 35 to reflect things that were in 35 that are now in 34. As we all know, much of things that are in 34 is in 35 except for food deserts, infrastructures, economic development, affordable housing, COVID, community violence, things of that nature. And so in the event that item 34 prevails, I will have to make the decision to do a couple different things. One, to pull it down. Two, to amend the things that are similar between 34 and 35, and then the board will vote on whether or not they want to fund those things.
Mr. Parliamentarian, you're looking as confused as I am. So can from a procedural standpoint, how do we move past this point, this impasse right now, based on what we've been talking about the last 10, 15 minutes?
It's not germane to the discussion. Point of order, Mayor.
What's the point?
Point of order. This furthering discussion is not germane to my amendment as to adding a 90-day look at the unallocated funds.
For clarity's sake,
I
it is.
respectfully disagree. He's asking a question.
For clarity's sake, it is
Point of order
what I'm voting on. Mr. Parliamentarian, please.
The concept, as I understand the amendment is to take the balance of funds, which would be $5.5 million, and dedicate a date, 90 days from now, that the board would look again at the possible allocation of those funds. The question you've got is, well, if we do that and pass 35, what does that do? As the mayor just pointed out, though, if you pass 34 like that, there's really no reason to consider 35.
I didn't say that. I said I would amend the amounts that doesn't resemble that.
I heard no mention of the 500,000 allocated for violence, community violence. I mean, I've heard a couple other areas that we've mentioned that is not included in the mayor's, and I haven't heard one or two that are in the mayor. So that leaves me in this state of being flummoxed, Lance, with respect to how do we move forward? What are we voting on? I mean, what?
So, Director, again, I want to just make sure everyone's aware. As we all know, city staff did a presentation. Much of Director Wright's proposal has the city staff presentation that did at one point in time have unallocated amounts of money. As we all know, two different things is the reason why city staff has changed that decision back in early July. One, the Biden administration, as well as federal partners who issued, are the result of the reason why we have these funds in the first place, have shared that they would like to see these monies spent as quickly as possible. Clearly, there's a deadline on how they're allocated, which I believe is 24. However, these dollars are not meant to be a cushion for us. They're meant to get the dollars on the street to help those that are in need. And so that's number one reason why the city's proposal doesn't exhaust all of the dollars. Number two, as we all went to the 7 ward meetings as it relates to the millage election that we recently passed, we all know there are more dollars and more infrastructure needs that are needed. And many of us listen to many of the residents, that as we will listen to many of the residents in these next few weeks, as we continue to listen more with the millage, that there's still more needs, and we have funds to address the needs of food deserts, infrastructure and target community development, affordable housing, and many different other things as we've shared today. At the end of the day, no matter what the board does today, we got to ask ourselves, when members of the community ask us, what are we doing about certain things, and we have the opportunity to spend those funds. That being said, what will happen is, if Director Wright's proposal, I am grateful that Director Webb did issue $1 million for food desert. That helps address the question, so we're not waiting on food deserts. So thank you, Director Webb, for that. So that'll be a part of that. In the event that Director Wright's proposal, which ultimately will become the city's proposal if nothing else passes, that addresses that. But when it comes to item 35, I will amend, because I firmly believe from a philosophical standpoint, we need to address these issues that the community, I have the privilege of Chairman, Vice Mayor, that I can be speaking right now. That being said, that I will amend anything that's already funded in item 34, and then the board will vote on those remaining items in item 35.
Mayor, the question was, what are you voting on? What you're voting on right now is a section to take the $5.5 million and declare that 90 days from now, y'all will have a discussion on it. That's the motion before the board. If that passes, it would be amended, and then you would have the vote on the resolution.
Correct. Director Phillips.
I was just going to share my appreciation for Director Richardson, because I was likewise confused, so that was the reason why my hand was raised, Mayor.
All right. Director Computers.
Well, there's several things, and I'm going to support what Lance said, because I think there's some real validity to doing what Doris has done, that we agreed on, that everybody likes. And I agree with what Kathy did, because we can start working on that right now. But many of the other issues that we have were in the first tranche that we haven't allocated or spent all that money yet. They're chronic issues, they're not acute issues. How they play based on what we do with the tax we just passed or the re-upped on the sales tax is going to make a difference. And I will remind y'all that I still meet once a week with the hospitals in town, and I'm not sure what's going to happen this fall. And to not have a reserve that we may need for an acute problem is, in my view, very short-sighted. So I think that even though $5.5 million sounds like a huge amount of money, waiting 90 days, and I admire Lance's wisdom in saying that, is the way to go. The problems we're talking about at the end of the mayor's list are problems that we can still look at 90 days from now. But if all hell breaks loose and this pandemic comes back and we start having problems, the money was put out to take care of a pandemic and the problems it caused on this community. And I will remind you that it's still there. I still wear my mask unless I talk. And I think it is very short-sighted of us not to take Lance's wisdom and to vote to do this. The second thing is, I'm not 100% sure if this passes, how we can vote to spend money that we just voted to sequester. So I think that's a legal question we need to ask. But has Lance's motion been seconded? If not, I'll second it. But I think that it is wise for us as a board to keep that money for the purpose it was meant for, and that is to take care of issues that may come up. And I'm not sure what's going to come up. I wish I knew. The bivalent shot, the vaccine may really help, but we may have a terrible time. And we have a community that we have to be able to support, and that's what this money was given for. So I think 90 days to see what's going to happen, come back, relook at other issues is the wisest thing, and that's what I'll vote for.
And Director Computers, I do appreciate that. I just want, for clarity for members of the board, these funds are to be used for American Rescue Plan Act, which includes infrastructure, drainage, water, utilities, community violence reduction, affordable housing, and a component of COVID-19.
Yes, sir.
Item 35 does include funding for that, but these funds are not solely for COVID-19. We, the city, the states, receive a Coronavirus Act funds, 2 installments of it in 2020, totally, where that was solely for around that amount. So just want to make sure we're clear.
Yes, sir, and I agree with what you're saying, but the problem.
I just want to make sure everyone understands.
It's been exacerbated by this virus in the communities we're trying to help. And I don't know what's going to happen 90 days from now. So I think holding it back 90 days, we may come back and take all the things that you were talking about in 90 days and say, we've had a hell of a great fall and early winter, and we're going to move ahead. But I think we're real short-sighted not to do what Doris said and what Kathy said and not save the money for the moving ahead. So that's my point.
Director Phillips, then Director Richardson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to address Director Computers. Definitely respect his medical background. But as a person who grew up in wards 1, 2, 6, and 7, I don't want those residents to think that they always got to wait. And what I'm hearing from my colleagues is, hey, if you live in that ward and as it relates to infrastructure and economic development, you have to wait. So that's why I made, for those who listening and those in the city, that's the reason why I made the amendment, because I didn't want the people in those areas to wait. I understand where the votes are, and I understand, Mayor, what you're saying about number 35, but I also think that we have obligation to help our citizens, especially when we have one-time money that's been allocated to do so. So I just wanted to make sure that those watching are clear that I don't think those folks should have to wait on their infrastructure development, whether it's 90 days or 120 days or whatever it becomes, this opportunity to do the work for those people, and that's why I made the amendment that I made. Just wanted to add clarity to that, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Director Richardson.
Yeah, thank you, man. I want to echo Director Phillips' point about folks in particular parts of our community, whether it's intentional or unintentional, getting the impression from this governing body that they always have to wait. Dean, I don't know what's going to happen in 90 days. Nobody knows what's going to happen in 90 days. I know an election is going to happen within 90 days. We all know that. And that's one thing we all know. In 90 days, there's going to be an election. We'll have an election for certain. I don't know if COVID's going to kick back in. I don't know if sidewalks going to crack on Capitol Street, Director Miller. But we do know that an election is going to happen within 90 days. So I'm at the point where Director Phillips said, I don't want people in certain parts of our community where they live in food deserts. and I find it quite ironic that we've constantly talked about our concern about public safety and the need for more public safety, and there's no reference, no mention of the $500,000 allocated to address community violence in anything I've heard so far, short of what you put in yours, Mayor. I find it quite ironic. I find it's really, really interesting to me that from this governing body, who we consistently and constantly say, well, our number one priority is public safety, and there's not an inkling of that $500,000 from that tranche mentioned or included in Lance's or Doris's or my good friend Director Webb's amendment, or even in Director Phillips' amendment. So I just think that we really need to make sure we're sending the same signal to everybody in our city of Little Rock. I mean, there's certain people in certain parts that feel like they gotta wait, as Director Phillips just said. And I just think that's the unfortunate reality of what we're dealing with and what we're listening to and hearing from various constituents who are dealing with various issues as it relates to COVID. COVID affects a number of our citizens in different ways, depending upon the demographics of your community, where you live, where you work, your income status, and we tried to address it through a resolution many months ago that unfortunately failed. Dean, I thank you for supporting that. But we do know that in 90 days, we will have an election. That's one thing we do know.
Director Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to make sure that the public is listening. Certainly the residents of Ward 1 understand that on September 21st, we're going to have a public meeting at Philander Smith College to talk about where residents of Ward 1 want the funds spent that, or prioritize the funds spent that was passed during the millage. Ward 1 residents aren't being neglected as it relates to that. They will have a chance to vote on that and put forward what items they want. And so, I get a little uncomfortable with that, with what's being said at this point, because we will have a chance to prioritize those funds that the whole public voted to support. And I think, let's not lose sight of that, that the public said, we want this millage passed. They passed it. We have these items that are going to come before the public. We've asked the public to come back to these public meetings. We will have a public meeting in Ward 1 on September 21st at Philander Smith College. They will then prioritize those items that they want to have done. We can then come back, take a look at what's left in ARPA funds. We can prioritize those. So I don't want anyone to think that we are not concerned about what's going on in these wards that have not traditionally received funds. We will be having discussions about that. And I see an opportunity, again, when we come back to allocate even more funds towards some of these items. So, I want to see, quite frankly, that we try to make some progress, that we don't divide up wards against each other, but that we try to work together. We are just one big puzzle. These are pieces of that puzzle. And I want to make sure that the residents in Ward 1 know that we're working hard for them and that they will have a say in where these funds go. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Miller. Director Weirich?
Thank you, Mayor. I want to agree with Director Miller. I want to relate to the residents in Ward 7 that we do have the millage dollars that are coming forward, that we can identify projects that need to be done. And I do want to relate to the food desert issue. I know the grocery store on 12th Street is going to go away, Kroger is, but that did not only serve the residents of Ward 6, because I had an outcry from Ward 7, which is just across the street from where this store is. And so there's a number of people that were impacted by that one store that's going to go away. Even in Director Webb's ward, there are people that were distressed about the Kroger store going away. So just wanted to make that little comment about the food desert. The other thing I wanted to ask about, Mayor, is some of these items that are in the second tranche, it appears to me that we've already funded in the first tranche, or some money has been allocated in the first tranche. Director Richardson talked about community violence. I would have thought that those programs that we did in the first tranche would have been part of the community violence intervention programs that we've already done. So it's not that we haven't done anything, we have. Under the drainage projects, I know in the first tranche, we were going to do the Yorkwood drainage project. Isn't that correct, Mr. Moore? So there are some drainage projects that have been already allocated money for. So those two, I feel like we've already done something. It's not that we're not doing anything now. We've already pushed some things forward. And there may be some others on here that I'm not picking out, but I agree with Director Miller. We'll take a look at this in 90 days, and maybe our thought processes will be a little bit clearer, and we can make a better decision than we can today. When we have the 90-day look-see at where we are, can we also have the amount of money that we've set aside for the first tranche and where we are on the spending for that? Because it appears to me that we could have some additional monies to allocate at that point. Is that a correct statement, Mayor?
No, ma'am. The reason why is, and every member of the board did receive what we've allocated, expended, what's been procured and secured last week. We'll get that resent to you all.
Well, there were some that we hadn't done anything with. So.
And that's because of the procurement process, meaning, so for instance, just like in PIT programs.
And I'm not being critical, I'm just saying there were some areas that we hadn't allocated or we hadn't spent money on.
Well, we've allocated the funds, and if something's not spent, it's because of a procurement process, the process that we go and how we fund programs. So that's the reason why. So it's not that everything that you all have already approved, it's in process. Contracts have already been signed by the city attorney. It's in lieu. It's just a matter of going through that spending process.
Okay.
So it's not that it's available. There's no money available from the first tranche. Unless you all decide, which you can do at any point in time, you can decide and halt different commitments that you've already made and change your mind.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I was just a little bit unclear about allocations versus spent. And I knew that there were some that we had not spent, so, okay. But in 90 days, my real point of that is in 90 days, we might have a clearer picture than we have today.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Director Peck.
Thank you. I will be brief because Director Miller said it very eloquently and Director Weirich reiterated it. And I just want to remind people that are watching, we just passed millage for infrastructure. So to say that wards 1, 2, 6, and 7 are going to have to wait, we're getting ready to have our public meetings. Show up. The first one is in Pankey, day after tomorrow. So we are going to be addressing these things. Also, in the first tranche, we approved something like $1.5 million in infrastructure and drainage. So I just don't want the public to think that we are passing neighborhoods by. We haven't accomplished things yet, all these things yet, but just give us some time. I don't want to come across as unfeeling.
Thank you. Director Phillips.
Thank
you, Mayor. And
I've had my hand up for a while now.
I will defer to Director Wright.
Thank you.
Sure, I'm looking at the list. So, Director Wright.
Thank you. I thank Director Miller for bringing some clarity and some context to the narrative that's going on, because it makes it look like we are unfeeling. I live in Ward 6. My deed to my property says John Barrow Addition. I'm surrounded by substandard streets. But we did just pass a millage, and the Ward 6 meeting is September 19th. And the residents will get a chance to select those projects that they want to see done. And I think we need to have a cushion so that when there are unexpected issues that come up, I'm dealing with one now on Dover Drive. I'll get to that at the end of the meeting. I'm dealing with another situation with Miss Barbara Williams where her house keeps flooding. And we're going to try to address these things with our millage. But if we can't, then we've got a cushion or something to pull from. And Mayor, with that, I'd like to call a question.
Second.
Well, just out of respect, I did defer to Director Wright when I got called upon, so I would like to respond if that's okay.
And for the public, we're only calling the question on the amendment. We haven't even taken a vote, just for everyone's aware.
Or we can call the question on amendment, then I'll vote. I mean, I'll make my statement as it relates to the actual vote.
There's a motion and second on calling the question on the amendment. All those in favor? Madam Clerk, did you have?
We have not voted on my motion to review in 90 days. That's what all this out of order discussion has been about.
That's what we're doing right now.
Trying to get the parliamentarian to reel it in. This discussion should have occurred after we voted on this amendment.
That's what we're doing right now, Vice Mayor Hines. There's been
Sorry, I had written down that it had passed because the only person that voted nay was Director Richardson.
No. Director Phillips. Ask your question.
Okay, I just wanted to respond as it relates to the context. And I think I respectfully disagree with some of my colleagues. We did pass the millage election. That money is separate than the ARPA money. I don't think it's a problem to invest twice in areas that need it. Also, for clarification for our residents, this is an allocation of funds. We're not saying where the money is going to go. So I agree, the opportunity to have these community conversations at the different wards is an opportunity for us to go to them and say, hey, we just allocated another $1 million as it relates to these certain wards. And now we have that money and the millage money to invest in certain neighborhoods. So this is not an either or, this is a both and. It's a unique point in our city's history where we have millage dollars and federal dollars where we can doubly invest in parts of town that hadn't been invested in the past. So if we're going to give context, I mean, they say if you're going to tell it all. And the all is, this is just an allocation, one. And then two, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing prohibiting us from doubly investing in areas that hadn't received any investment for a long time. So I just want to add the context to that, Mayor.
Call a question
What are you calling the question on?
on the number 34.
I don't think you voted on the amendment. I don't have that you voted on the amendment.
Yeah, we did. I was just trying to go with the Madam Clerk.
You voted on the First Amendment that was Director Webb's. It passed. You voted on the Second Amendment, which was Director Phillips. It failed. Then there was a roll call. And then there hadn't been a vote on the Third Amendment.
And
I hear a call question on Vice Mayor Hines' amendment.
That's what the motion
You've already
was
did that, didn't you? Call a question.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Ayes have it. Now we have, as amended, item 34 that includes food deserts, plus another amendment that the 5.5 million will be reviewed in 90 days. Mr. Moore, before we call the vote.
Tom, there was a motion to call the question, And I believe that's what was just voted on. And now, don't they need to vote on the vice mayor's amendment?
Yes.
We just did.
You called the question, and there was a vote to call the question, and that just passed.
The procedure was, there was a motion to call the question, and there was a second. And then there was a discussion, which there shouldn't have been. There should have been a vote, and then there was a vote. So you're right. The vote was just now on calling the question. So now you're voting for the resolution. As amended, and for the amendment, for the 5.5 million to be held 90 days.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Ayes have it as relates to the amendment. We'll now have a vote on the resolution as amended, which includes 1 million for food deserts. That's been transitioned from item 35 to item 34. And then the remaining 5.5 million held in reserve to be reviewed in 90 days. Director Ryder, you have your hand up?
I was just gonna call the question, but you asking for the vote.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay. Can I have a roll call, Mayor?
Ayes have it, roll call.
Director Campuris?
Aye.
Director Phillips?
Nay.
Director Adcock?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Richardson?
No.
Director Webb?
Yes.
Director Peck?
Yes.
Director Wright?
Yes.
Director Weirich?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hines?
Yes.
8 ayes and 2 nays.
Madam Clerk, if you read item number 35.
A resolution to state the intended uses of the second tranche to the City of Little Rock, Arkansas allotment of the local fiscal recovery funds through the American Rescue Plan Act and for other purposes.
Thank you so much. Before we entertain questions and call the vote on this, again, I'm amending, City Attorney, all the items in 35 that are now part of 34 to be taken out of 35, which leaves the remaining funds of $5.5 million. The reason why, as I've shared, that philosophically I believe that we should not wait. Yes, we did pass a millage. We're all aware of that. And we all know there are things from the previous millage that have not been addressed that will be transposed to this current millage, and there'll still be things not addressed. The point is, clearly we need as much dollars as possible for infrastructure across this entire city. And so when we have opportunities from the federal government to reinvest in areas that are specific to the areas within the federal guidelines, it is appropriate to ensure that our residents are not waiting on additional funds. Yes, they will still receive funds from the millage, but we all know that when we go to these meetings, there are going to be more dollars and more requests than we have funds, particularly because the board policy is, particularly with streets and drainage, that it is equality versus equity, meaning that each ward will receive an equal amount of money. And we all know there are certain wards that need more money than other wards. That's the difference between equity and equality. And so when we have opportunity for more additional funds to go to areas that do not receive as much, that's the reason why I'm asking members of the board not to wait. The members of the board choose not to vote for that. Yes, we'll hold it in reserve. But we all know when we walk outside this building, members of the community will ask for different things, and we have an opportunity to always address when we have funds available, particularly because this is not our reserve account. This is the federal government, which clearly is all of our money, but it's the federal government who's given this, so this is additional funds. This is not our savings account like we use with our reserve account within the city. So these are additional funds that go help people in need. I'm very grateful that Director Webb has transposed $1 million for food deserts, because guess what? When we walk outside of here, people, they ask me every day, what are we gonna do about the Krogers on Colonel Glenn? What's gonna happen to the Krogers on Main Street? On Roosevelt. And so when you talk, these are opportunities to address. So board members are gonna vote the way they vote. Again, it's my duty as mayor of the city, when we have this opportunity to propose, it's up to the city board to dispose. We get that, but again, I'm just imploring upon the city board, we got these additional funds. This is not our reserve account. This is not our savings account. Let's spend the money. At the end of the day, it's not about us, it's about the residents. So I will be amending the remaining amount, and that $5 million will address the remaining amount, which is infrastructure, as economic development within wards 1, 2, 6, and 7, which will give some instant gratification, Director Weirich. As we know, as it relates another $1 million for drainage, because you're right, Director Wright, drainage is an issue for Ms. Barbara Williams, who we all listen to, and we know that's the issue, but we also know there are countless other Ms. Barbara Williams that no matter how much money that we have in this millage, that we need to be able to address, because Ms. Barbara Williams, if you are listening, you're the reason why we had the $1 million in drainage, because of your comments that you gave to us in renewing the millage. So thank you for that. Again, $1 million for affordable housing. We know we need to continue to utilize that and the other remaining items that we have. I'm just asking members for the vote to not allow our residents to wait on additional funds from the federal government. Director Computers.
Mayor, you can't just amend the ordinance. You would have to have a motion and a vote to amend it to put in the $1 million for the.
Do I have a motion, Director Phillips?
So move.
I got second, Director Richardson.
Or Director Webb's $1 million for the food desert.
Second.
Second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Ayes have it.
Roll call, Mayor.
Roll call. I knew that.
Nice try. It was a good try.
I
Director
enjoyed
Concaris.
that one, Mayor.
I know.
Keep doing it.
Director Concaris.
No.
Director Phillips.
Yes.
We have fun, everybody.
Director Adcock.
No.
Director Miller.
No.
Director Richardson.
Yes.
Director Webb.
No.
Director Peck.
No.
Director Wright. No. Director Weirich. No. Vice Mayor Hines.
No.
2 ayes and 8 nays.
All right. There's, Director Computers.
Well, I'm not sure where we are if we don't amend, if it's not amended.
We're done. No, you still got to vote on it. I didn't take it down.
What?
You still got to vote on it.
Oh, okay. It's down. I'm gonna get under the table.
All those in favor, please say aye. We're voting now on item 35. The amendment wasn't made.
Oh, okay.
We need a motion and a second to,
We are, a motion from Director Phillips.
So move.
Second, Director Richardson. There's a motion and second from those two. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Hey.
Ayes have it.
Roll call, Mayor.
Roll call.
You're having too much fun, Mayor.
I am having a little fun.
hearing aid. Director Compuris.
No.
Director Phillips.
Yes.
Director Adcock.
No.
Director Miller.
No.
Director Richardson.
Yes.
Director Webb. No. Director Peck.
Still no.
Director Wright. Director Weirich. Vice Mayor Hines.
No.
Director Wright, would you like to change your vote? No. The 2 ayes, 7 nays, and 1 present.
All right, members of the board, we're now moving from item 35. We'll now open up the hearing for item number 36. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read that item.
A resolution to authorize the city manager to execute the Little Rock Police Department Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant application in the memorandum of understanding with Pulaski County and for the purposes.
Move for the adoption of the resolution.
There's a motion and a second. Well, let me close this hearing first. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. We'll now go to our
Who said present?
Director Richardson. Said present. We'll now transition Mr. Kevin Howard.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board, city manager. I'm going to recap presentation that I did on August the 30th, current efforts by the City of Little Rock staff to address homelessness. And I'll just briefly go through, I don't know if you'll have a slideshow presentation. So current efforts by the City of Little Rock to address homelessness. It's not moving, Ellie. Okay. You're gonna move it for me? Okay, thank you. So just to address some of the key city staff positions that address homelessness pretty much on a day-to-day basis, from the Office of Executive Administration, Homeless Services Advocate Chris Porter, Volunteer Harriet Phillips, Housing Neighborhood Programs Department staff. Go back, Allie, you're moving a little bit too fast for me. Housing Community Engagement Advocate Arnard Crump, and he's out each day going to homeless camps in the City of Little Rock. Also, Catch and Community Care Coordinator Michelle Spencer, Community Development Administrator Celicia Nichols, also Tracy Shine, who is the Community Development Manager, is not located on there, but.
Evan, and with the holiday, we didn't get to follow up. Really, this today, I mean, was to answer any questions that came from the presentation. We not to go back through it.
I got you. Okay, is there any questions?
Director Adcock.
Kevin, so much of this is later on. We need something right now. We have a homeless problem, particularly in the panhandling at our streets and everything. It's gotten out of control. Where they leave it during the day is nasty. Citizens are feeling like they're being pushed around when they stop for a light because of the homeless people walking up to their cars. Some are even touching their cars and everything. This is very bothersome to women, particularly when they're in a car by themselves. Someone told me that Memphis staggers the times that you can panhandle. Have we looked at things like that? To me, the biggest problem we have with the homeless is the panhandling, is what we're seeing in our streets. If you go down University right now over by that new hotel, right before you get to 12th Street, it looks like there's just trash all over that. And that is what people are talking about. I don't think anyone doesn't want to help the homeless, Jericho Way and everything else. But I think that we need something right now to address the homeless panhandling in this city.
Yes, and I understand that, Director Adcock. And one of the things I know in the past we did Bridge to Work, would originally invite panhandlers to work and try to get them off the street to come in and give them opportunity to work each day. But, as the program has grown in popularity, the ability to invite panelists to work has decreased. So one of the things that we'll have to do is get with our city attorney and see if it's something that we could put in place, something like you just stated with the city of Memphis.
Well, I know that Kathy and Cappy both had brought a good program where we hire them and pay them $37 a day. And there's some people that are great with that program, but it has not helped with the panhandling. And that is what I am really interested in. What can we do? Other cities throughout the United States, what are they doing to address panhandling in their streets?
Yes, we'll check on that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Director Miller, then we'll come. And there's Director Weirich, then you, Director Weirich.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Howard, appreciate this presentation and all the efforts that's going towards that. I have a specific concern I want to bring to your attention, and that is, aggressive panhandling in some of in the Soma area, certainly in the entertainment district, where I've heard from, merchants that their customers are being aggressively panhandled when they're out trying to eat in the patios and using their restrooms. And I understand, of course, it's not a crime to be homeless. And I'm sympathetic to people that are homeless, and certainly the ones that may have, mental illness. We have to address those. But has there been any thought towards ambassadors on the street that have social worker skills that can, address, these aggressive panhandlers in these districts? And then also, when there's work being done, specifically in some of these areas, there's a porta potty that's been put out for the workers to use. I've been told from some of the merchants that porta potty, when they're out there, homeless people use them, and they use them a lot. And so therefore, it cuts down on people trying to use the public facilities in the restaurants, and it also cuts down on the homeless just relieving themselves in public. And so I'm just thinking out loud here. I don't have any answers, but has the city ever used porta potties in strategic areas where the homeless could use those, as opposed to going in public or just going up to restaurants and trying to use those facilities? I mean, are there any thoughts to those two ideas? Porta potties out where the homeless can use them, and then ambassadors or social workers that are walking the streets, because we know a lot of these people's names. They're not unfamiliar to the merchants. They know them by name, and the police know them by name. And again, taking people downtown and then they're out in a few minutes. It's not really trying to address those, but I think porta potties and maybe more social workers on the street could be more of a help. Is there any ideas to that?
Excuse me. As far as the porta potties being on the street before in the previous past, I would have to defer to the city manager on that, because I'm not for sure if that's something we've done in the past. Of course, I know it's going to cost some money, and I don't know what type of public safety issue that's going to cause as well with the police department as well as any other department. So, Bruce, do you know of anything that we've done in the past as far as, besides actually maybe the marathons? I know, of course, we put out porta potties during that time period, but as far as that situation of having them across the city, I know that may cause us an issue too as well.
Sure. The one time that I can remember we tried it and it did become a problem was over in Petaway Park. And basically, as Kevin said, the neighborhood was expressing concern about the potential and real illegal activity that was happening in the porta potties. So obviously, that experiment didn't work, but it's a very challenging issue for everyone around this table. And I do believe, I think it was Director Wright who sent Mr. Carpenter a copy of the Memphis ordinance, and I don't know if he has some feedback on that or not. I think the federal judiciary has made some rulings that I think all municipalities are subject to, but I don't know if Mr. Carpenter, Mr. Mayor, could expand on that at all.
Mr. Turning, please. I know there's some varying degrees, but I think we all are aware, and I know Chief Bewley's here, but I'm not asking him to come up, so I'm going to try to speak for you, Chief Bewley. You give me permission? All right. I'm having a good time today. Long story short, everyone, we all know there was a federal ruling from a judge many years ago that really made things a challenge for our officers to engage our brothers and sisters experiencing homelessness as it relates to being in the right of way and things of that nature, which brings a lot of issues for our officers. Many people think that they can do our residents do have rights. And so our officers in their community policing training understand that. And while they work to enforce our our residents who are experiencing homelessness who are committing crimes outside of their constitutional right. They address it and enforce it. We're working on a number of different ways to do that. Director Miller, just a few things, just as a shout out to the police department and to this Office of Executive Administration and this city board who have approved the city now as one of the only city, I believe, in the state of Arkansas right now, definitely the first. We now employ we have funded close to 4 social workers within the Little Rock Police Department who are working to respond to issues. I know what you're speaking to is more ambassador program with the Downtown Little Rock Partnership, but we do have 4 social workers right now. Secondly, what we will present to you with more detail next week is our micro village proposal that the city board also approved as it relates to addressing homelessness, that we firmly believe a lot of what you're talking about, where there will be wraparound services provided at a central location for our residents experiencing homelessness. So whether it's our social workers, whether it's our potential micro village as we're at the homelessness, and then also the understanding that our officers have a lot on their plate and they're juggling the constitutional right that our residents experiencing homelessness have with the balance of when they're doing things that are clearly out of order from a law enforcement standpoint. They do ensure that they move, that they are handling that, but also many times as they're engaging them, that's the reason why we have the social workers, so we can transition them to, again, this city board supported. Little Rock does a lot as it relates to homelessness, transition them to Jericho Way, DePaul, USA. I know Director Webb and Director Peck, you've done a lot as well with our Bridge to Work success and things, so we're doing a lot. But particularly what you're referring to is what we hope to pass in a couple of weeks in this micro village. Is that okay, Chief Bewley? All right. Director Weirich.
Thank you, Mayor. It seems like probably mid-May in Ward 7 and parts of Ward 2, which used to be Ward 7, we started experiencing a lot of panhandling. And for instance, Otter Creek, we had people that showed up at the entrance of Otter Creek and Otter Creek Parkway and those kinds of things. And then I started hearing about camps in different locations. One camp in particular was on Man Road. And I know the city went in there and they had social workers and they went in there and they were trying to assist those folks. But the concern from the community in and around, I'll take Man Road to start off with, there were children that were in that camp and they were very concerned about the kids being there. Then the next thing that started happening was people were talking about their property was stolen. And so I know the city was working with the property owners. They were talking about clearing that whole area out because it is very tree covered and dense. And they ran into some environmental issues that they were not able to do that. So that was the first one that I got involved in. And I talked with some of the police department, and they really are kind of like what you were saying, that, you know, they're trying to balance the relationship between the rights of the people and what they can do. The second one, location that I heard about was on West Baseline, and there was a camp that was located in an island between I-30 and 430. And the report was those individuals were coming from their camp, going into the storage units, going into some of the businesses there and stealing property. And I think they actually caught some of them. Another thing that I heard about was there was a pregnant lady that was living in one of those camps, and someone was trying to assist her and to get a place to stay. And they called the city, and the city said they didn't have any place for her. So I was hopeful that what would happen would be the people in the city would come together, the police department, the social workers, housing, everybody sit down and talk about what their problems were and how we can eliminate some of those problems. And, what we got was a discussion about what we're doing, which is, it's the same thing that we've been doing. So I'm a little bit disappointed that we don't have really a plan to handle the camps. For instance, if they're on private property, what are the rules for the property owner? What can they do? I've heard that they can post their property and the police will come and ask them to leave. I don't know if that's the real situation or not, but it just seems like that, and I know it's not a police department, totally a police department thing. I've talked to Chief Bewley about that the police can only do so much. But some of these struggles that our residents are having are real, and they're seeing children in camps, and they're seeing their property disappearing. So it appears to me that we need to have some sort of strategy to help in those situations. On the panhandling thing, I go back to that. I talked to Mr. Carpenter, and Mr. Carpenter says that we have laws on the books that take care of panhandling on city streets. Now, we do have an issue on state highways that we're not able to deal with that. So, Mr. Carpenter, can you address what our laws say about panhandling?
Well,
what we're able to do and what we can't do?
the city has an ordinance that prohibits begging from medians as a safety measure. Begging, selling, approaching automobiles, it's not limited to begging. The cases that have upheld, that have stricken statutes that essentially make begging a crime. And no court's going to do that. That's a First Amendment right. What the courts will not uphold is when the actions of the person who is doing the begging cause affront or alarm or somehow create problems for another individual. So if you're at an ATM at night and you're using that and somebody says, "Can you loan me $1?" That's not a crime. But if they come up and start trying to open your door and say, "Give me $1," that is a crime. And the crime is an assault. And it's also some other offenses. And you're not charging them because they're begging for the $1. You're charging them because they are putting you in fear for your safety. Where the cities around the country have gotten into trouble is they don't have that second element there about being put in fear for the safety. In other words, the safety concern is what creates a crime, not that they're asking for money. And some cities had ordinances, and a long time ago we had one too that said that. We've got ordinances now about making requests on rights of way. Ours goes further and says that you actually start walking into the street to collect funds or walking into the street to sell items and such. Judge Wilson's order was because they were merely asking for money while they were there, and he dealt with the state of Arkansas's roads, but it didn't deal with our medians. It doesn't deal with the situation that Director Adcock has mentioned several times. I want to say university, but it's University in Colonel Glenn now, I think. And you know, if they're out there on a median doing something, or when she mentioned a couple of weeks ago about somebody having a child on his back while asking for that, that's improper under our ordinance and could be enforced. Now, having said that it could be enforced, it's sort of like Arlo Guthrie's song, Alice's Restaurant. The guy's in there with a whole bunch of really bad people, and he's in there for littering. I mean, that's the problem the police have, is they've got to choose between, do I answer a robbery call or an armed robbery call, or do I take the next 30 minutes to deal with somebody asking for $1 on a median? And I think our police typically go to the more serious offense.
It's a very complex issue, and I understand that it is. But I was hopeful that, and maybe there was a group of people that came together and talked about what the challenges were and put into play some things that we can actually do to help the citizens that live in and around these camps and where this panhandling is out of control. Thank you.
And Director Weirich, I would share, and I think you would agree, and I hope you and others vote for this. We have a critical issue it's plaguing residents experiencing homelessness. And when we share that is the solution, or a critical step in the solution, we believe, and again, I say a critical step, because there are other, because this one solution doesn't mean that it alleviates other things that are going on. But I do think the solution is this micro home village, because what happens is Chief Bewley and our officers, well, probably not Chief Bewley, but when our officers are engaging with our residents experiencing homelessness, many times when they engage and they enforce, they transition and they try to direct them to Jericho Way, direct them to St. Francis House, direct them to other places. But we have to have a central location that also has a lot of wraparound services, not just during the day, but day and night. And so that's part of the solution. We know there are other entities within the city that are working on other critical steps, and so we're working in a coordinated fashion. So I think that's one solution. Do I think we solve it today? I don't know if that's possible, but we're going to sure try, because every resident matters. So I think that's one thing, and hope that that's one solution.
And I understand that. Doris has come up with the proposal to partner with Mosaic. And, they're already on the ground close to where the homeless individuals are and doing health services. They have social workers and those kinds of things. And, partnering with Mosaic, to me, makes a lot of sense. Now, Mosaic is in Ward 7, so... But it's in a...
You should get that in there.
Just thought I'd say that. But it's in a central location that would serve more than just 6, 7, and 2, and then Kathy's area as well. It's in a central location. And there are a number of folks that are in and around that area. So it makes sense to me that, if we could partner with them to try to make a difference with these individuals, it would be good. But I guess my thing is, if you've got a camp and you see children and you're seeing your property missing, those are the ones that we need to try to pay some attention to and make a difference. And we've been able to on West Baseline. I think we got a little bit better over there, but it's just a matter of time to where something pops up again. So I just hope that we're looking at what our struggles are and our challenges are and try to work our way out of this, because I do understand it's very complex.
Thank you so much. And Chief Bewley, and just if you'll give a brief comment, just walk everyone through just engagement with our residents experiencing homelessness that may be causing potential law enforcement issues.
Sure. Members of the board, thank you. Clearly, as we encounter and engage with our homeless population and/or our citizens that are having concerns from a property crime standpoint, where maybe there's homeless around residents, where things are being stolen, clearly we encourage the reports to be made. We investigate, and from our standpoint, it wouldn't matter whether it was a homeless individual or someone that has housing. We will investigate those, and those are crimes separate from anything to do with homelessness, and we would move forward with prosecution. It is a challenge for our officers as they balance the panhandling issue because of the protected freedom of speech. And as Mr. City Attorney said pretty clearly, it is time consuming to address that, and it is a complex issue. The officers are busy every day on the normal response for calls to service. We are open to what this forum may lead to, Our job is to enforce the statutes. We don't legislate the individual things that we're going to go out and enforce. We are open to be a seat at the table, if you will, when it comes to addressing the panhandling, because the biggest concern is the safety to those citizens, both those traveling in the cars and those that may be out there doing the panhandling. I know there are some cities that have enacted some individual ordinances that give certain streets that have speed limits over a certain mile per hour that they can't do it on. And so we're just kind of hung in that middle ground. And so we are looking forward to the seat at the table, and that's what, as I talked to Director Adcock about this, it's a much larger approach than just the police department. But we're sure willing to do our part with that, because as we know, homelessness itself is not a crime, and the fact that the panhandling is a protected speech, it does make our task a little complicated.
Thank you, Chief Bewley. Vice Mayor Hines.
Thank you.
I'm going in order. I promise you, I'm looking at it right here.
I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet. You know, Tom, as I recall Judge Wilson's ruling, he laid out some specific items of where panhandlers cannot be in the medians, areas that are not right away. We used to have an MOU with the Arkansas Highway Department when Scott Bennett was there. Their highway police don't have time to come patrol their right-of-ways. They would be more than glad to give us an MOU, because I see a lot of the encampments. Camping in our parks and in the city in general is illegal, right, Tom? You can't just camp anywhere in the city. Right. Posting of private property, if it's posted and the police get a call, they can run people off. And I hear what we're talking about, but my church has worked with Our House, which is transitional housing for the homeless. We've got lots of groups that do transitional housing. Unfortunately, a lot of the worst offenders we have with the aggressive panhandling are the chronically homeless that we don't have any answer for. And honestly, a lot of them are where they want to be. They've either got mental illness, they're self-medicating with drugs and alcohol, and they need a lot more services. But we do have things we can do. And what I'll tell you, what the frustration from our public is, and I know we talk about, well, we got bigger crimes going on. I'm a very big believer in the broken window theory. That general sense of allowing whatever you want to be what you want to be and do what you want to do on a street corner that intimidates people, that's, Tom's already said, a crime. It's almost like terroristic threatening. If it's not whether you thought the threat was terroristic, it's what that person felt when you said it to them. It's state of mind of the individual. I think that we keep talking round robin. This board needs to give direction to Tom, the mayor, our police department on what we want to see happen from our police department. And, it's as simple. I see them out in the medians every day, whether it's on Asher, whether it's the off-ramps on the interstate. We can get an MOU with the Department of Transportation that gives us the right for our officers to keep people off of that when they're rolling by. And I know the officers roll through those intersections. To me, it seems as simple as you roll up on an intersection, hey, get out of the median, I'm taking your picture, I catch you here again, I'm gonna run you in. You can't be here. The federal courts have already said it. It's just some plain and simple enforcement of what we got going on. And I think if we'll start to address some of these little issues, it will lead to a general sense of law and order on our streets, which will lead to other things. And anytime broken window theory has been applied, you do the little things and the big things take care of themselves. We're going to catch the bad guys breaking into houses and doing that. We always do. But part of what's going on in our city and the general frustration of our residents is a general sense of lawlessness on our streets, whether it's panhandling, whether it's graffiti, whether it's camping, wherever they deem possible. Public urination. I know I've seen it happen in the Heights. I've seen it happen in Hillcrest. I mean, just a general sense of lawlessness is what everybody's frustrated with. And we're shorthanded in the police department. I get it. But I know those guys and ladies are up to the task of protecting us. They just need a little direction and some ordinances that they can enforce from us.
Director Phillips.
I'm sorry, Mayor. My question was for City Attorney. He's already addressed it. I forgot to take my hand down.
Director Wright.
Thank you, Mayor Scott. Director Weirich, thank you for acknowledging the proposal that I submitted. I'm hoping that it will get a favorable review. It is a collaborative effort. It's UALR University District, School of Social Work, and Mosaic. And Mosaic is already on the ground doing these services and providing outreach and meals. And they want to open a homeless outreach center. And I do believe we need one in that area because these particular individuals, and some of them you see them so often you get to know them. They're not going to Jericho Way. And so we really need a homeless outreach center in that area of Colonel Glenn University and Asher. And I agree with Vice Mayor Hines. If we can address this median, if they're not supposed to be in the median, that's where they are. I thought that they could be in the median, and that's why we were not enforcing our ordinance in that regard, because that will go a long way toward dissuading some of that. And the trash is picking up. There's a trash can there that somebody stuck in the median on the South University side. Who's going to empty that? So that paper's going to spill out and so forth. And I do believe, and I did speak with the Kroger representative about that store closing, and that was one of the reasons people felt uncomfortable going there. There was people sleeping on the parking lot. They had, there was theft going on. So we have to address this so that these situations don't continue to impact our grocery stores and other shopping areas that will make it hard for the rest of our citizens to be able to shop and for our businesses to be able to stay in business. So I would, Mr. Moore, I did submit that to you. I hadn't heard back from you, and I know you need time to review it, but it would directly impact wards 6, 7, and 2, and it's all those partners together. And they already have their nonprofit. They already have the space. They're bringing on staff, 2 counselors and a homeless coordinator, and they just need they want a partnership. They need some assistance. So I think this will go a long way toward alleviating some of that problem that we have there. But Mr. Carpenter, if there is a way that we could have a MOU with the Arkansas Department of Transportation to address these medians, I think that's the way we need to move. I thought that they could be in the median. That's why we weren't doing anything.
Now, we've got an ordinance that people in the medians within the city of Little Rock are in violation of the law. The one question we've got is what about the on-ramps and off-ramps from the interstate system now?
Well, I'm having a problem there at the Stay Bridge Hotel up in the woods there. The camp's right there. I've heard from some visitors that stayed there that they didn't feel comfortable, and that hotel is very, very nice. And I drove up there one day and just parked on the parking lot, and I could see why people felt uncomfortable going there. And one of these individuals had a car, but he was just sitting out there panhandling, but he had a car. So how do we address that? I mean, we need to let these property owners know that they can post their property, and if they're posted no loitering, no trespassing, then they can call the police and the police can move them along. I don't know if they know this. So hopefully our housing department can make that information known. It could be just a little informational handout that we give to individual businesses when they contact you or me or whoever regarding how do you address this.
Yes, excuse me, Director Wright. That's one thing that we do when we go out to these property owners, and we would give them information on what they need to do as far as posting their property. We're working with planning, the police department, and also Public Works to address these issues. Some of the things that Director Weirich talked about when we go to these property owners, as she talked about the property that she had in Southwest Little Rock, on our Crump, who is the homeless engagement specialist, and he goes out to these properties and talks to these property owners. We've cleaned up a lot of properties in Southwest Little Rock. The CVS off of Baseline Road, they had a huge camp out there. We were able to work with departments within the city of Little Rock to address that issue, especially Chief Beulah and his staff. They've been very, very good at assisting on our Crump and Chris Porter in these activities. Also, we've had calls, emails from Director Webb regarding individuals being out at War Memorial out in the park. We've able to get them out of those areas, and all throughout the city we're having problems. But one of the things that they're doing, they're moving from one camp to another camp and starting another camp. And so some of the properties are on state land that we have to get in contact with the highway department to address those issues. And a lot of them are to private owners where we ask them to actually post their property, either work with Public Works or planning to post those commercial properties so we can address those issues like you just stated.
Well, I agree with Director Weirich and Director Adcock. I think we need a plan where we get a little bit more aggressive, because we want to be empathetic, but we also have people that are running businesses, their livelihood is at stake, and we have to look at the whole picture. And as I said, working with the Mosaic, with the Homeless Outreach Center in that area will help, but we also need to be a little bit more aggressive at these medians, because that's where the problem is. And that's where they're just walking up and down. They're not in the street. I've not seen anybody accosted in the street. It's just that it's the trash and the laying on the parking lots and getting the buggies and putting all their goods there and sleeping on the parking lot and laying up at the front of the stores. These are kind of things that people are complaining about. So I appreciate everything you do, and it just looked like to me you might need some more staff.
I agree. That's one of the things we all need, but one of the things I know that's the issue in the state of Arkansas and the city of Little Rock is housing. And housing first, the state of Arkansas is a housing first state. And so one of the things we have to do is improve and increase our housing stock. And so with the increase in housing stock, that would give us an opportunity to provide these housing opportunities for these individuals once they transition from the issues that they're having into permanent housing. And so I agree with you in that area where Colonel Glenn is in University. We do need some assistance there and some housing there and some other issues that we need to address as far as social skills and those things, wraparound services.
And Mayor, I'll just say that I'm very excited about this micro village. I was hoping we got to vote on that tonight. It sounds exciting, like it might be a possible solution. I follow housing trends, and I know the tiny houses are very popular today. And when you're used to sleeping rough, 250 feet or less is not a problem. It might be a problem for me going from 1,500 down to 200, but those places, I've seen them, they're really nice. And so I'm very excited to see that project come to fruition. And that seems like it'd be a major step in the right direction. But I do know that there's some mental health issues going on here. And we need to get with entities like Mosaic that can hire the counselors and that can go out and do the outreach. And the School of Social Work has agreed to help. We had a conference call with the chancellor, and the university district is definitely impacted. And a lot of people don't know, but the university district, it extends all the way down to 36 and Colonel Glenn. That's all a part of university district. So they're very, very much wanting to help get that area cleaned up.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Director Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I know people are getting antsy and eager to leave, and so I'm not going to take too long, but I just want to reiterate that I think we have a responsibility to talk to our elected officials at other levels of government, because we're sitting here talking about issues like mental health and an addiction and treatment issues that we as a city cannot tackle by ourselves. And the legislature has a very strong mental health commission right now that is a very large bipartisan group. They're meeting all the time, and I've been talking to my state representative about this and perhaps coming and talking to some of the other members. But I would ask us in some form or fashion to have a conversation with Emily about this, and maybe Emily can talk to them or attend some of the meetings if she hasn't, and if she has, I apologize. But I think it would serve us well if we engaged with our legislators about this as well. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Members of the board, any more questions regarding homelessness?
Mayor, I did have one question I wanted to follow up. If he may be gone, is Public Works Director still here, Mr. Moore?
I think he may have left.
If he's gone, I can follow up with you tomorrow, but it's regarding the Canis and Bowman intersection. And where are we with alleviating the stacking? I've gotten some questions from people that live and travel in that area, and there's a development going on there now. And I did get my answer to that. I understand it's going to be a Circle K or something to that effect. But I know we had allocated some money previously to address that intersection, and I just wanted to know where we were in that process.
Yeah, we'll provide a status update. All the design plans are pretty much completed, but we'll get an update to you.
And also, too, I want a follow-up on the Dover Drive. You were having staff look at the numbers and the alignment.
And Mr. Honeywell and Mr. Collins and I know Lori's trying to set up a time for us to together this week.
The owners of the cottages reached back out, and they're beginning their design plan.
Yes,
and they want to make sure that they're not reinventing the wheel if that can be done. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Director Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor. Real quick, this for the city manager. I had a few residents reached out to me about the recommendation for the board to go on a retreat. I know that was scheduled, then taken off the schedule, but I know some of our constituents who pay close attention to this wanted us to get an update on that. So if you can look into that and provide us an update in the next week or two, I appreciate it. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right.
Motion to adjourn?
There's a motion. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.